Hi again. Okay, so this is the third of the parts of the lecture for EH 100 410-7. 1 second. Sorry, I had to cough. The second part of today's lecture is talking about editing for clarity. This is the information that's in chapters 38 through 41 in the McGraw-Hill Handbook, and you may want to take a look at that as well, because it'll go into more detail than we'll be able to go in here. So the first thing I wanted to talk about are avoiding mixed constructions. So mixed constructions occur when a writer starts a sentence one way and then changes it halfway through. So that makes the subject or the predicate unclear, or the sentence itself doesn't make sense. And because they are not grammatically, like they don't tend to have a clear subject and a predicate, even if they're really long, they're also fragments. So to fix these, you'll go back and read your work aloud. It will sound weird, something will sound off, and then you can go back and revise the sentence to be grammatically correct. Again, you can find more information about this either online or in the McGraw-Hill Handbook. So the second one, I see a lot more of this, is confusing shifts. So here's some examples. And these are from a student essay. They're not a student in my class. They're a student in a different class. So a friend of mine's class. So this is important. I uttered under her breath. So we don't know who is, we know the I is uttering, but how can she utter under someone else's breath? That doesn't really make much sense. I wore an obsolete shirt between the sides of her light gray thin jacket. Her black jeans ran tightly down her legs to her plain black tennis shoes. And there's also a comma splice in there as well. So she wore an obsolete shirt between someone else's jacket. How did she do that? That doesn't check, it doesn't make sense. And then this is from a different place, but the bridge was still open then, and I was up there one day mowing the grass along the side of the road, just minding my own business, when I see something moving out of the corner of my eye. So we don't know whether this is happening in the past or whether it's currently happening, because half the sentence is in past tense and half is in present tense. So shifts in point of view, first, second, and third person or tense, can make it really difficult to understand what's going on. There are 4 types of confusing shifts that I actually wanted to talk about that I see pretty often. So shifts in person, these are point of view shifts, meaning that the point of view of the work appears to change mid-sentence or paragraph. So these would be like from first to second person, or third to second person, or third to first, or first to third, anything like that. They make it really hard to understand what's happening, from whose perspective it is, and what we're looking at. So like in the first 2 examples from the previous slide. So shifts in number, or shifts from singular to plural, or vice versa, and they have some of the same types of concerns with confusion. Shifts in verb tense, so past to present, present to past, past to future, future to past, future to present, any combination of 2 tenses like that. They can make it difficult to understand when the action is happening, which can disorient the reader. And shifts from indirect to direct quotations. We're not using research, so that doesn't happen as much here, but it does cause confusion when it happens, and I wanted you to be aware of it. So shifts in person, point of view shifts. An example would be, according to the new rules, students will be allowed to access computers only if you arrive before 9 p.m. So we shifted from third person students to second person you, making it difficult to understand who the writer is speaking to. So to fix it, we'll reread or revise the sentence so that it's consistent. So there are 2 options. According to the new rules, you will only be allowed to access computers if you arrive before 9 p.m., or according to the new rules, students will be allowed to access computers only if they arrive before 9 p.m. So you can see in this first one, both pronouns are now you. In the second one, we have students and its corresponding plural pronoun they. Shifts in numbers, or from singular to plural, or plural to singular. So a person is often surprised when they are complimented. So you have a person at the beginning, you have the they in the middle. So is the speaker talking about one person or multiple people here? We really don't know. So again, you advise to be consistent. People are often surprised when they are complimented. People's plural, they is plural. Or a person is often surprised when she, he is complimented. A person is singular, she, he is singular. Shifts in tense. So another example, according to the traditional view, the medieval period begins when Rome fell. Well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense because the medieval period has long since passed, so it can't currently be beginning right now. So you revise for consistency and clarity. So according to the traditional view, the medieval period began when Rome fell. Remember to use the same tense in the sentence and paragraph unless there is a logical reason for the tense shift. So if you choose present tense, try to stick with it unless there's a good reason to switch. If you choose past tense, stick with it unless there's a good reason. Shifts between quoted and unquoted text. So an example. In his famous inaugural address, President Kennedy called on Americans not to ask what their country could do for them, but instead, what can you do for your country? So the writer switches to using a quote halfway through without indicating the quote. So you have two options here. You can make sure that the quoted text is clear. In his famous inaugural speech, President Kennedy said, "My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Or we can paraphrase the quoted material if you don't want to directly quote it. So in his famous inaugural address, President Kennedy called on Americans not to ask what their country could do for them, but instead what they could do for their country. Fixing confusing shifts, the same principle applies for all of them. Just be consistent. If you choose something, stick with it. Tips, again, read your work aloud. When you do that, you'll catch the weird stuff. And think critically about what words or phrases are doing in a given sentence or paragraph. So another type of not only error, but stylistic choice are wordy sentences. And wordy sentences, so let's look at some examples actually before I talk a little bit more about it. So a wordy would be, at this point in time, I'm basically failing the class due to the fact that I have too many tardies and absences. So that's a lot of words to say that. So a more concise way would be, I'm currently failing the class because I have too many tardies and absences. Or even, I am failing the class because I have too many tardies and absences. So then another one, for the most part, I kind of enjoy watching soccer. So you could say, I mostly enjoy watching soccer. Or even more concise, I enjoy watching soccer. And third one, despite the fact that I studied for the exam, I basically failed. Well, despite the fact can be replaced with although, so although I studied for the exam, I failed. So why are these a problem? Well, wordy sentences can be confusing. It's also a lot harder to manage your grammar and punctuation, your sentence structure, when you have all those words. The fewer words you have, the easier it is to figure out where your subject and your predicate are, and the easier it is to figure out if you need commas if necessary. So what do you look for? Well, wordy phrases and empty words, unnecessary repetition, weak verbs and nouns, or repetitive sentences. I didn't want to go into a huge bit of detail on these, but I'm going to a little bit here. So look for empty words and phrases. So example, the fact is at this point in time, more women than men attend college. So the fact is, well, the reader is presenting it, or the writer is presenting it as a fact, so we know that already. At this point in time, it's in present tense, so we can assume that it's at this point in time. So all of that's unnecessary, so we can revise it to more women than men attend college. Another example would be reports that come from college officials indicate that applications from women exceed those from men. This pattern indicates that women will continue to outnumber men in college for some time to come. That's a lot of words. Well, a revision that would kind of trim that down would say it could be college officials report. So we've got college officials here. We make that the subject, and so we make this the verb instead. That applications from women exceed those from men. That kind of stayed the same. Instead of going this pattern indicates, we change that to indicating that women will continue to outnumber men in college, and we can assume that it's going to be for some time to come, so we'll just take out that. So here are some common words or phrases and what you can replace them with. So according to our data, we find, take into consideration, consider, regardless of, despite the fact, although, majority of can be most, in most cases typically, is able to or is possible that can be replaced with can, in an effort or in order to can be replaced with to, in the event that can be replaced with if. This is a good kind of chart to just keep on hand, so you can kind of look for that. So to find empty words and phrases, ask yourself, do any sentences contain empty words or phrases? Do they seem wordy? Do they contain redundancies? Can any clauses be reduced to phrases or phrases to single words? Can any sentences be combined to reduce repetitive information? Or do any sentences include there is, there are, or it is expressions or weak verbs? And I apparently made that slide happen twice. Okay, so unnecessary repetition. So the same idea is repeated within like the same phrase. So a brief summary. Well, a summary is brief, so you don't need that. Currently and at this time, those currently means the same thing as at this time, so you don't need both of them. Exact, same. Same and exact mean the same thing. End result, end and result mean the same thing. Past and history mean the same thing. Jewish rabbi, a rabbi is Jewish, so you can just say rabbi. Safe haven, a haven is a safe place. True fact, well, we don't have false facts, hopefully, so of course they're going to be the same. Opposites are a pair of two things that are opposed on a binary. So you can't, if you have opposites, then you presume there's two of them. A wealthy millionaire, someone who's a millionaire has to be wealthy. Yearly, annual, something that happens annually happens yearly. So, it's, they mean the same thing. So that's the kind of thing you're looking for, are just words and phrases that mean the same thing. Okay, so missing words is the last kind of subsection of this. So some common situations for these are compound structures, dependent clauses starting with that or who, and comparisons. So in a compound structure, so the boss flies first class, the rest of us economy class. So, even though you can kind of infer it, there's no verb in the second half of the clause. So in a compound structure, you need subjects and predicates for both sides. So the boss flies first class, the rest of us fly economy class. Include who or what when needed for clarity. So example is the attorney argued men and women should receive equal pay for equal work. Well, the attorney argued, there's something missing in there, right? So the attorney argued that men and women should receive equal pay for equal work. And hint, a lot of people will put an extra comma where that should go, like we know that there's something missing, and so you just kind of throw a comma in there. That's incorrect. And if you find yourself tossing that comma in, check and see if adding that or who would be a more appropriate choice. And then finally, this is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but comparisons. When you're comparing two things, both sides of the comparison do need to be there. So, example, I loved my grandmother more. Well, I loved my grandmother more than who or what. More, we don't know. We don't know what the other half of that is. So, a revision of that sentence might be, I loved my grandmother more than my sister. We still don't have all the information. Does the speaker love her grandmother more than she or he loves his or her sister? Or does the speaker love her grandmother more than the sister loves her grandmother? We don't really know which it is. And so a final revision for clarity might be, I loved my grandmother more than my sister did. So that makes it clear that the speaker loves her grandmother more than her sister loved her grandmother. So we've got about a minute. Okay. I'll do one more of these to kind of go over. No, I don't actually need to. So remember to do the attendance exercises for today. Everyone will need to do them since I can't be there, and we do need to kind of get some practice. I'm working on adjusting the prompts right here, and I should have those up very, very soon. And again, I'm really sorry that I'm sick, and I will see you guys on Wednesday, because we're not meeting Mondays. Yeah, so next Wednesday. Have a great day, and that's it for this.